For a physics of consciousness, you need some kind of action across proper space to give energy within a space-like boundary around an organism, some kind of physics to participate in that isn't reducible to actions of individual particles, but actually constitutes a wholeness not reducible to its parts. The following is a theory about such a vertical action that is minimized across proper space, granting consciousness, individual subjective experience, and even astrology a meaningful physical framework. While my videos so far have explored what an as above, so below principle would mean for quantum mechanics, this video will be more focused on relativity. Let's start with one of the most well-known thought experiments of special relativity, the twin paradox. Basically, if one twin accelerates away from Earth, then accelerates back, less time will have passed for the spacefaring twin and the Earthbound twin will be older. But here's a strange variation on this thought experiment where you can make it observably the same across space, but experientially different in time. What if the Earthbound twin and the entire cosmos except the spacefaring twin inversely accelerates instead? This situation could look the same from every reference frame, but the twin in the rocket ship would be the one that got older. Weird, right? Observably the same across space, but experientially different in time. So how could we get consistency here with the relationship between the observer and the observed, above and below? Well, with relational momentum, the observable across space and the experienced across time become mirrors of each other. Let's break this down. If momentum is relational, change in momentum, or acceleration, is also relational. So the acceleration of the rocket ship twin is the same thing as the inverse acceleration of all other mass. This is nothing new, it's just Mach's principle, impossible to test because we can't move the cosmos in this way. However, I would like to explore inertia conceptualized as a minimization of change in relational momentum across proper space. Let's call this change in relational momentum across proper space vertical action. And we can call change in relational momentum across proper time, which we associate with traditional forces, horizontal action. I know this is actually the opposite of how space and time appear in a space-time diagram, but this labeling was concretized in my mind by Wolfgang Smith with his concept of vertical causation, as well as the ancient concept of emanation expressed in religious symbolism. The wiggly lines represent the constant change of relational momentum across proper space carried by space, the vertical action caused by constant cosmological change. The straight lines, of course, still represent the change in relational momentum across time and carried by light, the horizontal action. You can imagine that if both lines were straight, it would represent a system that is cosmologically stable, in which case this whole thing just looks like relativity, like with the first version of the twin paradox. The first thing you might notice is that an expanding universe would contract the length of the space between all masses, proportional to the mass and inverse proportional to the radius, like gravity. But let's hold off on that and look at biology through this lens. Over time, biological systems evolve into microcosms of their environment, or in our new terms, they develop internal patterns of action across proper space that account for patterns of external action, anything that comes in contact with the space-like boundary around the organism. Ideally, the internal momentum reflects the external momentum. Their experience across space-time reflects or reacts to their observation of space-time. This creates a non-trivial solution to the minimization of vertical action, where the minima forms a space-like boundary around the organism. And that's what I was looking for. While not yet a complete formalization, this is a type of action across proper space that gives energy within a space-like boundary around an organism some kind of physics that it participates in as a whole that isn't reducible to actions of individual particles. I have a lot more to say about this regarding how relative entropy could be used to model this idea and how it may be expanded to model not only the identity of individuals, but the identity of particles, quantization of energy levels. I even think it has quite a lot to say about the identity of nations, as well as different levels of consciousness and self-consciousness and humanity's apparently unique capacity to contemplate the unknown and invent abstractions and symbols, but for now, this is it. This is what I got. You take special relativity, add relational momentum, call change in relational momentum a new type of vertical action that is minimized across proper space, and biological organisms get a non-reducible participation in physics. I think it could also explain the unaccounted for cosmological anomalies currently explained by hypothetical exotic substances like dark energy and dark matter. I'm looking forward to digging into Michael McCullough's new book on quantized inertia and his opinion on these anomalies because quantized inertia is quite similar to what I'm working on, as I've expressed in my previous videos. There's clearly still a lot of work to be done here, so I always appreciate comments and criticism, and if you'd like to help me afford to work on this type of thing full time, please join my Patreon. Before I end here, I'd also like to introduce this symbol. I call it a space-time harmony tensor, the measure of the microcosmness of a region of space-time with respect to the cosmos. It's an S and T, obviously for space-time, but its resemblance to the Ankh and the snake on the cross are not accidental. It can be broken down into S and T as body and mind, or action harmonized across space and action harmonized across time, but once again, that'll have to wait for another video.